Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your host, Collin Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Punit from ALP Bio. He's the co-founder and chief business officer, and we're going to talk product market fit, but from a biotech perspective. Before I jump in, this episode's brought to you by our Predictable Revenue Founder Coaching Program. Founders, let's be real. Scaling a company is tough. You're juggling product, revenue, hiring, and a million other things. But what if you had a proven framework and expert guidance to help you navigate all that chaos? That's what our founder coaching program does. Whether you're trying to find your first customers or build your first sales team, we probably have somebody who's been there and done that before. If that sounds interesting, give me a call. Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where sales leaders teach you what's working for them so you can build it yourself. Punit, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Colin. Great to be here.
I'm excited. I like doing different things, and I think this one's going to be a little bit different than the typical SaaS journey. And so I want to talk about, where did the idea come from?
So, I can start way back. So my co-founder, Luca, he's our CSO, probably one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And since we were roommates, we've been on this. And I always said, Luca, I'm the business guy, you're the scientist. We both study science, but it just always felt like anytime you have an idea, give me a call, and then I'll help you build this up. And 13 years later, he called me to his PhD pitch. He graduated from Steve Mayo's lab at Caltech, so in California. And he called me up from Zurich, and I joined his live PhD defense. And he was just going on how you can use machine learning to create incredible new types of proteins in the field, specifically antibodies, and how he's exploring that space. And that was kind of the moment where I was like, okay, I think that's an idea. It's at the right time, right space. And after that, I called him. I'm like, hey, Luca, let's have a look. We discussed a few points, and I did quit my job for that. And that was roughly, I'd say 15 months ago.
Cool.
Yeah.
What were you doing before, and what got you excited enough to quit?
So I don't have a typical, let's say, journey, or maybe it's typical for founders. After my master's, as a chemical and bioengineer, I joined a startup company myself. I was a third employee. You really get, early 20s, you really see how things build up. How do you get to first clients? How are you selling a product, even though you don't have it? So you see all these problems, as you mentioned earlier. And that got me super excited. The founders back then, they let me do whatever I wanted. And I was really going out with the science. I was doing projects and this and that. But I also felt like there's a roof. Like if you're an employee, it's great, but you'll never get to founder level, even if you join a third, fourth employee. There's always kind of this distance.
Yeah.
So after that, I felt like I do need to understand, if I want to start my own company, how do bigger businesses work? So I switched to Deloitte first, get some insights more on the legal tax side, and then I joined a Swiss company, Swiss family-owned company, quite big, as a product manager. And I felt like, okay, product manager it's a core job where you have to where you get to work with all kinds of people. So from R&D to legal, to the business creation, to sales, and kind of at the central point. And I got a lot of learnings, and we were developing hardware, which is slower usually than the software. And I really got the confidence built up there on, okay, how do I work within a big organization, or how can I work selling to a big organization? That was kind of the learnings that took with me.
What got you excited enough that you're going to say, hey, I'm going to quit my job at a big organization with, probably a decent sized paycheck, and then I'm going to go from paycheck to zero paycheck?
I would say it was fear. It was this comfort creeping in. It was like, okay, I know my trajectory here. I know it's going to go. It's super cool. Like, you're going to get your promotion. You're going to get more money. You can get to the higher level, but you cannot really change big things. And I also felt like there are time windows. Like at this point, I don't have children. So I thought, okay, if I do want to try something out and go on a journey with someone, maybe do it right now and then see in 5 years. And so it was kind of this fear of missing out feeling. I don't know.
I hear that. I hit the exact same kind of point in my life. I was 26 or 27, and I figured if I don't do this now, I'm going to get comfortable and lazy, and I'm not going to do it. And I kind of had to tear the Band-Aid off and whatever it is, whatever color pill it is in the Matrix, where he's like, I'm going to go from this cushy life, and then I'm going to live in these sewer atmosphere with aliens chasing me. I was like, that sounds fun. I think I should do that.
That's a good way to put it. It's really this like life is about living. And yeah, we have a bit of a European mindset. Like it's not life is work, but you do feel like it is important that you can also build something and create something of your own and have really the authority of it. And there's a lot of management bullshit that happens in corporate. So if I'm gonna have that, why don't I have that with my co-founders instead of my bosses?
I think I
That
very
was a bit
quick
that.
I think in
Yeah.
hindsight, I realized I was not cut out for big company, especially big company sales, and kind of reflecting on the
Oh
experience. I'm
yeah.
like, wow, I was a crappy employee. Like, I was very good at my job, but I was a piece of crap to
Yeah.
work with.
Yeah, I think we have that in common. I think that that's part of the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then usually it's the idea, it's timing. I think timing is a key point. So Luca had this idea. He was looking for someone to work with. We've always talked about it, and it hit the spot. So I was like, look, I'm going to resign, and we start the journey. And it's been, yeah, we're not two, but we're four co-founders now. So that's also
Mhm.
a bit odd, usually for a lot of people. And it took a while to find the right people to build this with.
What about the
So
idea got you excited enough to say, "Hey, this is the time"?
yeah,
Like, I know it was the previous experience with
yeah.
the previous relationship with your co-founder, but, I've got a good buddy who's in science, and I 100% would jump into a company with him, but the idea's gotta be a good fit for what I wanna do and for what's aligned with what I could do.
So I'll go to the precise point. What I think is really cool what we're doing is we're looking into antibody drugs, so protein based drugs that are very effective and specific to how biology works. Different to what was done in the 60s, with aspirin, etc. But it's kind of this novelty that kicked in, and they're extremely effective. Like it's just incredible how magical they work. But then when you look at it closer, you also realize, oh, a lot of the drugs you want to develop don't actually make it to market. So there's a lot of these failure points. And I'd say the most exciting thing that especially Luca discovered are is working with tonsils. So that's a bit special to what we're doing. For anybody who knows, tonsils are an immune organ and they're removed around, I think in the US, it's 300,000 operations a year. So they're removed from patients and it's a pure immune organ. And what we actually do is we take these patient derived organs and we test the drug against that.
What?
Yeah. It's crazy. And I think that was the exciting factor. I'm like, okay, wait, there's something that is trashed and you could use it to test drugs, before you have to use it in the human. And that was kind of the the switch.
Interesting. You got, like, a big lab with a bunch of tonsils sitting in jars, just
Pretty
a
much.
mad
I mean,
scientist?
pretty much. I mean, it is kind of in that way, and we have to really acknowledge. I think majority of the work has been done academic. So looking at a company, what the reason was is we wanted to move this academic setup very quickly to a company setup because the problem with academia is it doesn't generate the same drive. So Luca could have kept going on as a postdoc. So he could have worked on this furthermore and publish on it. But to get real traction anywhere, it feels like you have to work within the system and needs to be commercialized at some point. So that was the driver for him to look for someone to work with. At the end of the day, I'm a product guy. So I really like building products. And the best part is, I mean, I'm going back to what I was trained to as a chemical and bioengineer. I'm going really back to the basic sides of it. And I think that was a good combination to keep going with the momentum.
Yeah, that'd be really
Yeah.
fun. I know a few
Right.
academics that have left academia and come into the business side of things. What was the transition process like? Was there any IP that you had to pull from the university? Was there any agreements? That kind of thing?
So at this point, there are a few patents around this. So I think basically some of the technology comes from Stanford, and we've been in touch with the patent holders. So there's still a bit of a process going on an agreement on how we can use it to commercialize. But we're mostly free to operate on that. Usually, I'd say what happens is that you have to get the license, you have to have the agreement, and then you can start the company. We were
Mhm.
quite lucky that we had this freedom to operate, and that also comes because our core concept is to use this tonsil experiment, as described before, to train a specific machine learning algorithm. So
Mm.
we've layered it into a different direction, where we're kind of a wet lab bio system that
Mhm.
is using this setup to have a very very precisely trained machine learning algorithm and that will then generate the value. So we're a bit off the IP side, and Luca is actually not only a biologist, but he also has some experience in coding and machine learning. So that was kind of this intersection space, which is quite interesting.
Cool.
Again, I go back to the word timing.
Yeah.
Timing is
It's not
mm,
relevant, but is it one tonsil? Right, do you have like hundreds of tonsils that you're thousands that you're testing
Yeah.
on?
So
Trying to picture the wet lab here.
yeah. So essentially, it's right now it's 10 tonsils that we have.
Cool.
Um,
From
in the
different
academic
people, or are
setting,
they like matched
yeah.
pairs? Like, does that matter?
No, it's different people. So
Okay.
10 patients. Patient. And what we do is actually every tonsil can give us up to 2,000 experiments. So we actually kind of cut them up in a specific way that we can. You've seen as you pipette them in separate tiny
Mhm.
wells, and then in the well that speck of the tonsils is the experiment that we're doing. So yeah,
Very cool.
that's quite yeah, it's quite fascinating actually.
It's super interesting. My friend does research on spinal cord injuries and
Oh well,
the impact of multiple sclerosis on the process, or the impact of the myelin sheaths on the process, or on
hmm
multiple sclerosis and how it breaks down. And so I've had a chance to
yeah.
tour his labs and kind of see that a couple of times. It's fascinating.
It is. It is. The same for me. Every time I go into a lab, I'm like, okay, this is back to the origin,
Yeah.
back to uni feeling.
Let me play with the big microscope again. He's like, no,
Of course.
come on. So, how do you go from idea
Yeah.
to validate it? Because this is I mean, there's a lot more of the idea kind of proven out, but then there's also the business risk of like, okay, well, just because we can do this doesn't mean somebody's going to pay for it. And so, talk to
Yeah.
me about the process of that you kind of went through to validate the idea.
So I'd say I would like to highlight 2 points. The first point was also bringing in someone who has an understanding of the machine learning, and maybe to lay out the real idea is you use the tonsils to see if a drug creates a specific immune reaction. If it does, we record the data, we train the AI model, and then when we have the AI model, we can re-engineer the potential drug so that it doesn't create an immune reaction. To re-engineer that part, we needed someone who is a machine learning expert. That's how we got our third co-founder. So we do need a CTO that can really handle the understanding of training and system setups. But coming to the business side, we also realized I didn't work in biotech, and we needed somebody who had at least worked with biotech companies, and that's how we found our CEO. He's a trained immunologist, so he has a PhD in that, and then he worked 2 years for McKinsey, and he was actually consulting these companies on their machine learning efforts. So it's kind of really this timing and match again on the topic, and he could see how far behind they were.
Mhm.
So that was kind of the first hint. And then what we did is we prepared a sales and pitch deck, and we started contacting pharma companies, cold outreach. So we didn't have any contacts ourselves, and surprisingly, we were forwarded, and people replied within days. And that felt odd because I do know how corporate companies work. You write to their info email, you don't hear anything back for months. But
Mhm.
this immediate response of companies and people, and even people in the field, it just kept them going. So they were like, okay, when is your essay ready? When can we use it? How is your beta model on machine learning side? So we've
Mhm.
kept on, going on that side, and it felt for us that this is the right pathway forward. However, maybe to also clarify, the product development, it does take a while. So
Mhm.
we're still early on, and we're still figuring out who are the right partners to work with, who has the highest interest on developing or further developing their drugs, and using our technology to do that.
Gotcha. What does
Mhm.
that process look like? Because this is not a typical SaaS sale where you're saying, "Hey, it's a year commitment and this and that." This
Yeah,
is sounds like something that would be integrated heavily into an R&D process, which is
correct.
not a lightweight thing. And so
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, how do you go about looking for the right partners? How do you go? How are they going about assessing you, and like, how do you fit into their process?
It's a really good question, I think, and that's also for your listeners. So the whole drug development process is a very, very regulated space. I think that's important to understand. It took us a while to understand that, and you need to identify where you really fit in that process. And looking at it, there's the clinical side. So you go into patients. That's what it means. That's something that's way too late. So that means if you want to improve a drug or if you want to tweak a drug, you need to do it before it goes into this whole clinical, highly regulated space. It's called preclinical, of course. And in that preclinical setting, there is this discovery side where you're kind of looking for new targets, of drugs that are binding well, affecting well. But you're just looking at this, look, does it work side or can it work? And then once you figure out, look, can it work? You need to figure out, is it safe? And that's the space where we come in. So we're not looking for new drugs for companies. It's actually companies who have found drugs they want to further develop and looking for a solution that can make that drug safer. And for us, it took a while to really figure the space out. And for us, it's quite interesting to find the right companies in the right space. Looking at that, for us, it's biotech companies, because if you look at biotech companies, they have 1, 2, or 3 potential drugs, and if they make it, they're big. If they don't, they're out. So you've got this risk metric inherently in their development process, and that makes us, or we become very attractive to them. If we can de-risk that, and they actually make it through phase 1 or phase 2 clinical trials, they can make hundreds of millions of dollars.
So what's the alternative? Like if they don't make it through, like if they say they push a drug through and it's going to have a particular response and then it goes through the clinical trial and then it fails and then that's it? Or do they go back to the drawing board and
that's it? And the reason why that's it, so if it's phase 1 or phase 2 failure, worst case phase 3, that's usually should not happen. It will cost you between 5 to even $100 million. And that's it, right? We have no revenue. There's no revenue attributed to that. It takes you 10 years to get even to that stage.
So even if they find that it's like a fixable reaction and it's in stage 1, it's just done?
For biotech, yes. For pharma companies, they assume a certain risk on these drugs, but they have different cash flow. They have different money attributed to that. Biotechs are usually financed by milestone payments. So every time they hit a milestone in their R&D development, they get a payment. And if they don't hit the milestone, let's say phase 2 is a failure, they don't get a payment, which means they don't have any cash flow left to further develop or to really go back and do it. They can find a new investor and say, look, we have a new way to do it, and then start the process again. But that's, again, in 5 to 10 years, you're looking into the redevelopment. The risks are very high. Yeah.
Yeah, just on a failure that could have been prevented.
Exactly. There's one really famous case, and it's hitting its 10 year. It's a drug called bococizumab, which was from Pfizer, and they actually had a failure at phase 3. They had, I think, don't hold me to the numbers, but I think it was 50 to 60% of the patients had an immune reaction to the drug. And then Pfizer really pulled it. They said, we're not going to market with this. And that costed them $750 million in R&D costs, actual cost. But the other side is, if it would have made it to market, that could have been $500 million in revenue or even more per year. So you've got this opportunity cost side as well. That's why nobody wants to have failures in clinical trials, or they want to have it early. They want to fail very early.
Yeah, and failing preclinical because you tested it on Punit's tonsils.
Much.
I mean, not your tonsils, but the tonsils in your lab.
I still have mine. Do you still have yours?
Yeah, I do.
Cool. At some point you might need to donate them. So.
There you go. I'll make sure I'll flag them and be like, I'll just take them out myself and just run swamp.
Please don't. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating business setup, and we're still learning how it works, and we're still learning what the real risk metrics are, how the money actually even flows in this industry, and it's fascinating. And everyone has a PhD, so you got to take that into account. Everyone is a scientist in this field.
I have one biotech pharma company client, and they're huge, and everybody has a PhD, and it's even the go-to-market people. I'm like, this is. Yes. In like the nicest way, this is the weirdest interaction I've had with go-to-market people because just most of us don't have, like, that's what I do. And most of us don't have PhDs in really fun and interesting things, went to business school, which, could be interesting, but not as fascinating as like actually like doing research, I find that.
And it's what I find cool about this is, especially dealing with scientists, there's a different mindset on how things are done and how things are discussed. Mm-hmm. What we're realizing our biggest value is credibility. So we're trying to be a bit slower in everything, but presenting very credible evidence and data. And that's where we're trying to build also our moat or business identity, which is different than going in software where you want to be fast and you can fail and it's fine to fail and then you can rebuild. In pharma, that failure rate should be lower because credibility has a strong value attribute in this space. And that's a new learning for us, or for me especially.
Totally. It must be a definite mindset change, from the move fast and break things to the, let's go slow and be intentional about everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to finding your first customer, which I know is something that you're kind of still in the process of doing. I mean, this is the definition of whale hunting, right? It's going to be one I'm guessing one big customer is going to make or break the company, kind of like with the biotech firms.
Yeah.
It's you get one shot. I don't want to over dramatize it, but it does seem like
Mhm.
what you're selling de-risks something that if you're capturing 5% of that, 10% of that, that's a huge number. And
Yeah.
so pricing must be a very interesting process in trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we, I give away the beta for free for the first couple people that use it because it's so broken it doesn't work. You can't do
Mm.
that. How are you thinking about this? And how does that play into who you're bringing on board for as a partner?
That's it's yeah, you pinpointed the key question in this. And it's tricky, but from the interviews that we have had so far, from the interviews that we've had so far, one of the key parts is can we align the risk of the company with the pricing? So that would mean most biotech companies have a budget to test for immunogenicity, and there are companies that do it. It's not something we're completely creating new. It's we have a new modality to do it. The current systems are you check it on blood samples of patients and you see what happens, but nobody really trusts that this data has clinical relevance. So there's some mismatch between the risk you're trying to check and the actual risk that has been seen in the clinical side.
Mhm.
However, they do have a budget to pay for that. And what we're thinking on, and that's what we're trying to bring on these interviews is can we charge in the similar range of that budget? However, when we re-engineer, so what we would do is we take the original drug, we run it through our system, and then we give alternatives that keep the basic properties the same, but
Mhm.
have a reduced immunogenicity profile. When we give these alternatives, that's where we would like to be paid on their next milestone. And that would be in a single digit percentage range, where it would make sense, which means the company or biotech specifically, they would not pay more than they're paying now. And if they get a payment, they could pay us. And that's kind of where we're trying to align exactly our business and pricing model to their risk assumption and not beyond that.
Yeah. I mean, how challenging is it if you say you go through and you fail, you see that it's a failure? You have this machine learning model that can turn that around. I'm guessing relatively quickly. What's
Mhm.
the alternative, right? Like they say, okay, cool, we got a failure off of the tonsil sample. How long
Right.
is it going to take them to go back and like re-engineer the particular drug? Is that like a fairly long process, or is it like, oh, we'll just target a different
No,
channel?
it's actually they have a protocol of that usually. So we would follow their protocol as it is today, and the timelines wouldn't switch too much. So it wouldn't be extra effort for them beyond what they have today.
I guess I was thinking on the like taking a single digit percentage of future
Ah,
milestone
correct.
payment sounds like a big
Yeah,
amount. And
yeah,
that's just on the I'll re-engineer this for you. How long would it
yes.
take them to do the same amount of work that your machine learning model will do for them?
Good question. I think with the current modalities, I think would be hard for them. The key reason why nobody's doing it or re-engineering immunogenicity purely computational is that the data today is not good. I mean, or it doesn't exist. And what we're trying to do with the tonsils is to get human relevant immune data on
Hmm.
these drugs. So that modality shift makes us capable to do re-engineering. The current offers of any competitor doing these tests is just look, you give us your drug, we check if it's a risk, and we give you a risk profile back. But they're not giving any re-engineered alternatives.
Gotcha.
So
So say they get to one of your potential
yeah,
future customers gets to, okay, there's a high risk of immunogenicity.
yeah.
Would your customer ever go back and re-engineer it themselves, or does the project just die?
There are different options. It depends on the drug they're building, on the risk they're willing to take. And to be fair, immunogenicity can be co-medicated. So you could take an immune suppressor medication as well. So there's some tactics. If you develop immunogenicity, what are the alternatives? Or
Mm,
how do we move forward? There is more to that topic than okay, it's just dead in its
right.
tracks. There are limits to if 9 out of 10 patients have immunogenicity, usually take it off. If 2 out of 10, okay, can we control it in different ways? Can we co-medicate it? Do we have alternatives? So usually the scientist side, they have alternatives to move forward and they might not re-engineer it.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
that does leave it open a bit more. Yeah.
Even if they do have to re-engineer it, it does sound like quite a bit of work from your client side. Months, years, days.
Yeah, months is the time space to re-engineer.
Gotcha. And you say, hey, I'll run it through my machine learning model and you'll give me X%.
Exactly. More precision. Actually going from this broad space to let's say a more limited space. of risk. And that's what we're trying to do. And give scientists a better pathway for the decision-making process. I think that's also something we should not ignore. There's so many parameters that you need to take into account, and sometimes it just helps to have some variance that you can use to check these parameters.
Interesting. And so if you re-engineer, you go through your model and you re-engineer the drug for them, do you have a guarantee that, hey, this won't trigger?
We would have the assumption based on the back testing against the tonsil. So what we would actually give is the original had this predicted immunogenicity on the wet lab samples. And then we would test it against the same assay multiple times and then see if the variants are lower. And that would be a ranked kind of choice for them. And if they would still like to move forward with the original drug, they can. So it's not a decision we're taking for them, but we're giving them kind of a ranking of what we think, conserves the original drug target to the new, and what is the immunogenicity profile expected based on tonsils. So it's very probabilistic rather than deterministic. We're saying this is the good one, this is the bad one. This is something I'd say. Again, dealing with PhDs, no PhD will give you a guaranteed answer. Yeah.
That makes sense. So it's super interesting. You've got they already have budget, so I love that. And then there's some potential upside in it for you if they go with one of your re-engineered drugs, formulas. Interesting. And then, so how do you go about getting somebody? Like, what's been your process so far to get them to, take a chance and incorporate you into, use tonsils instead of blood?
It's I go back to what I said before. It's also a bit of timing. When does the drug reach lead optimization stage? And you got to be there at the timing. So what we're doing is we're right now screening a lot of biotech companies that have received funding in the last 2-3 years, where we know kind of their development cycle. And we're approaching them, especially drug candidates where immunogenicity could be a bigger problem. There's some, usually cancer drugs can be a problem, but if it's, let's say, acute cancer therapy versus chronic diseases, immunogenicity becomes, let's say, a lower problem. So we're kind of ranking who do we address, and we do kind of cold outreach. We're building up an advisory network, so we also try to go over them with a warm intro. And our approach is rather to learn and understand on what they're doing and what they need at this point, than to actively sell and push the platform onto them. So it's figuring out when is the right entry point and in what form would we work with them. And we're not leaving out pharma. Like, pharma is also on our list, but we also know that takes a lot longer to go through, and it would be very different pricing and business model.
Totally. It sounds really fascinating. One tool you may want to look at, because it sounds like the four of you have very strong networks where it, like, with the target customers and advisors that you're already looking to connect with. There's a tool called CTD, connectthedots.ai, is CTD.ai. And you're going to give it more data than you're comfortable with, but you give it your email, your calendar, your LinkedIn data, and it builds a network graph for you. And then you get all four of your co-founders on there, or all three of your co-founders on there, and then you can see all of their network graphs, and then you can see who they're connected with. So the dirty sales guy on the team just has to upload a list of, like, these are the people I'm trying to reach, or the companies I'm trying to reach. What's my best pathway in to get, to that individual? And it's so much, it's so much easier than just straight cold email, or even just going through LinkedIn and trying to run this algorithm yourself, playing with it and working it into a couple of products that I use. Because it's going to give you an intro from somebody is going to give you a way better referral, or a way better chance of success than, like, a cold email.
Pretty cool. It reminds me, so back in Germany, we used to have this social network before Facebook it was called Lokalisten. And it was kind of like that. It's like, you clicked on someone, it showed you the pathway of how you know them.
Cool.
And it was amazing. I mean, we used to love that too. It's like, oh, you also know that person? Oh, okay, cool. Let me introduce. It's actually, I like that. It's back to the roots of my social media experience.
Totally. Yeah.
What would be something cool if LinkedIn did that? Like, that would be, mapping it instead of, okay, it has one connection or two connections.
I think they're kind of trying to do some of this, but I don't know. They've been bought and sold. I don't know if they're going to innovate too much when you're at such a large scale. They've got people to serve that are paying them, they're $100, $150 a month,
Correct.
Hard to break out of that. It sounds like a really fun and interesting time. What comes next?
So we are just closing our financing round. Important. We don't have revenue, so we need to be financed. At this point, we found some really great investors that believe in us as a founder, but also in the tech and the journey.
Hmm.
And yeah, based on that, I think what we really want to get are the right customers, customer profiles. So initial pilot projects where we can test our capability, but where we can also build credibility. As I said before, I think credibility is the key currency in this market. I think I'd say the next 6 months definitely events, going to places, talking to the right people, getting further information, also understanding if we're missing something or we have blind spots on what we're
Hmm.
building, and then constant experiments. So getting the data, because the more data that we have, the faster we have that data, the better we know the model will work. Those two, yeah, the scientific side and the business side, they do go hand in hand.
I
Yeah.
love it. If people want to learn more, they want to get in touch, what's the best
Sure.
way for them to reach out?
We are redoing our website. Give it a week or two,
Cool.
and then feel free there or LinkedIn. I mean, we all respond. We use it actively. So those are the two main channels. Email always works, but people feel emails are always a bit too formal, and you don't want to spam people. So, but
Yeah,
feel free.
hear that. And the website's alpbio. Right.
Outbio.ai. That's the website.
Love it. Punit, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Colin. I appreciate it. Appreciate the time here, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's great talking to you.
it's been fun. All right.
Cool.
And thanks to everybody for listening. We'll catch you all next time.